Beauty, a witch hunt, self-loathing, and hatred disguised. The Greeks considered beautiful women evil. In ancient China, the practice of feet binding was pure torture, but also deemed a rite of passage for those who desired to be perceived beautiful in the eyes of others. In modern society, mean girls bully those deemed better looking than them. This smorgasbord reflects the reality of what beauty really means to the human race, a simmering cauldron of prejudice, pain, and jealousy. Does it? Well, we much prefer for it to be buried with cobwebs, really. Not pretty. When we consider beauty standards, we also are quick to profess they are an invention, perhaps with feigned embarrassment. Yet it remains a societal ill that we ought never be rid of. The science of beauty was defined over 2 decades ago by psychologist Nancy Atkoff in her book Survival of the Prettiest. She deduced that the exaggerated proportions of ancient fertility goddesses reflected signs of fecundity and attractiveness. Amazing, but also barbaric. Considering how we love to torture ourselves in the name of beauty, I think she may be right. A consideration of historical perspectives of beauty leads us to the following points, which I highlight as a revelation of our own twisted imaginations and wretched hearts. The Greeks labeled beautiful women as evil, and we can also relate that to the modern-day femme fatale, the evil seductress characterized in Hollywood movies. The one whose otherworldly beauty must be demonic rather than divine. Portrayal of beauty in pop culture is equally fascinating. In Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the detective played by Bob Hoskins admitted that he thought that Jessica Rabbit was an evil gold digger. Why? As he said, her beauty was exquisite, and her reply, equally telling and memorable. I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way. That's a reflection of our own prejudices. As is the pop culture trope that evil equals sexy and beauty bad. The Greeks weren't the only ones to impose the rules of beauty, for instance, possessing a full figure and red hair as synonymous with an evil heart. In ancient China, beauty was synonymous with self-torture. Feminine beauty associated with tiny feet, an anatomical anomaly created out of the ancient tradition of feet binding. No full-grown adult woman naturally has tiny feet, and in my review of medical literature as a physician, I haven't come across any genetic conditions that present as such. Yet, I was told by my mother that my great-grandmother, I've never met her, was referred to as exceedingly beautiful for possessing the tiniest, the daintiest of bound feet. Her feet she religiously wrapped in layers of bandage every night from the time she was a toddler until her old age. Her sheer will powering through pain as she worked the fields, regarded as a virtue, which, according to Confucius, was beautiful. In the late 90s, the ectomorph replaced the mesomorph as the reigning supermodel. Self-loathing turned into self-torture in the form of eating disorders. And then we also decided that models were simply winners of a genetic lottery that the ordinary person ought not to be too hung up about. Better still, stick to the narrative that designers preferred models whose frames resembled skeletal clothes hangers. By the 2020s, plastic surgery became so rampant that self-loathing was no longer a valid excuse. Physical torture now is a level up in one's beauty game. Just break your face to make it right again. I wonder if we'll ever be allowed to think ourselves beautiful. The way I see it, in a world of doppelgangers, it'd be really hard to stand out. What does ugliness mean to you, really? If you like to know, I think it's self-hatred.